All for being together here today. So good to see you all. And I really want to thank my teachers for the opportunity to talk today. And especially want to thank Shishin Roshi and Roshi Shinko for allowing me to be a Soto Zen Buddhist priest in this lineage, and to have the opportunity to take part in the Soto Zen Buddhist Association and their events. And I feel really honored to be part of this lineage and grateful to all the people that support me. So today I'm going to share a little bit about my experiences going to the Soto Zen Buddhist Association conference in Philadelphia. I went there in September, and it's an organization of Soto Zen priests, and there were priests from all over the country who came there. There were about 60 people who participated in this event at a Quaker residential retreat center. It began as a residential school in Philadelphia for Quaker studies and residential living. There's 13 these beautiful old stone buildings on 24 acres of forested land, about 20 minutes away from Philadelphia. So that was really beautiful to stay there. And so I'll just say a little bit about what this SZBA is. So they're a professional organization of Soto Zen priests, and their mission is to preserve and promote the Buddha Dharma through the teaching and practice of Soto Zen Buddhism in North America, and to facilitate trust, respect, communication, ethical conduct, and education among the many sanghas of the Soto Zen lineages and in the wider community, and to compassionately widen the transmission of Dogen Zenji and Keizan Zenji's practice and understanding in the Western world. So they offer a lot of different events and educational programs and talks to members of the SZBA and also to anyone who wants to take part. So that's a little bit about what the SZBA is and their mission. So this conference was 4 days long, and there were many different topics covered, many different panelists and presenters covering a wide range of topics that concern Soto Zen in America today, and the direction of the practice and the direction we want to be taking. And so there was a lot of information, and I want to highlight a few topics. Let's see, there were only half-hour breaks throughout the day. We started at 6 a.m. with meditation, and then the programs went until 5, and there were breaks for meals and half-hour breaks in between each session. And there were multiple sessions going on at once in different buildings, so you had to kind of pick and choose. So there were some that I had to miss that I would have liked to take part in. And many wonderful topics covered, a lot of information to take in. So I wanted to cover, give you a little summary of several important topics. One is ethics and legal perspective, then Generation Z, making Zen relevant for the next generation, elevating women's voices, and psychological health in Zen practice, in Zen sanghas, and then different resources that are available to sangha members from the SZBA. So I'll just spend a few minutes covering each of these topics, and then there'll be an opportunity for some questions and answers after each one, and then we'll move on to the next one. So any questions so far? Okay, good, thank you. So one of the major presentations was about ethics and legal perspective, ethics in Zen sanghas. Let's see, Tenkyu Ruff led this session, and she's the guiding teacher of a Zen center in, I think it's New York. Sorry, I don't have the details with me. But she has really been the driving force for the development of the SZBA ethics committee and their statement, and they put a lot of work into developing a code of ethics and a procedure for how to deal with cases that come up. And I wanted the members of our sangha to know that we also have a code of ethics. Our sangha is governed by the White Plama Sangha Code of Ethics, and there's a grievance process as well. And it's posted on our website in case not everybody knows it. It's under gmzc.org, about us, and then the ethics statement. And this is an code of ethics that covers all members of the White Plum. And there are many similarities and crossovers with the SZBA Code of Ethics. I would say that the SZBA Code of Ethics is more expansive and more detailed about specific issues and the step-by-step grievance process that they've developed. But it covers a lot of similar things. And so many common ethical concerns include boundary violations, over-underuse of power, dual role relationships, like having a relationship with a teacher and then also a professional relationship with that same teacher. And not all of those are bad, they just need to be handled skillfully. Sexual misconduct or sexual harassment, and financial misusing temple finances, things like that. Our ethics policy covers confidentiality between teachers and students, the skillful use of power, mutual respect and compassionate speech, having appropriate boundaries, the dual relationships, and sexual conduct. So if someone does feel that there has been a violation of one of these ethical concerns, then you can apply the code of ethics to that. And an ethical violation is something that directly violates one or more of these ethical principles set down in the code. It's not just a feeling of, oh, someone is disrespecting me. I have this feeling all the time of this person is disrespecting me. It has to be something concrete and a direct violation of one of these principles set down in the code. And then if someone does have a concern about one of these policies, they can talk to one of the teachers or the Dharma holders about it. So there are multiple different people to talk to if you have a concern about one of these things. And you can also talk to me. I'm not a teacher, but I can help guide you through that process if needed. So Tengku Ruff talked about how having a code of ethics is like being vaccinated against legal liability. And so if we have a code of ethics in place, then we're prepared and we don't have to be scrambling and trying to figure out what to do when someone brings a concern. We can turn right to the code of ethics and say, does this violate principle in the code of ethics? And if it does, here's step by step what we can do about it. And so also she talked about when there is when a sangha does have a code of ethics that is consistently enforced, it builds a great amount of trust in a sangha. So it's very important to have a code of ethics. Let's see. So the SZBA has one of the people that they can go to for help is a lawyer Carol Murchison. She was there in this presentation, and she's handled many really big legal Buddhist cases. And she's a highly skilled lawyer, and she was there talking to us in that presentation and answering questions. So that was really, really helpful. And she brought a lot of insight into that issue. And we worked through a specific legal case that was based on, it was a hypothetical case, but it was based on actual events that had happened in different sanghas. And we worked through it from the point of view of a fairly new teacher who was just starting in his role as a teacher and feeling some isolation, wanting to create connection with sangha members, but he kind of overstepped his bounds with a younger female student and created some confusion. So we first heard the story from his perspective, and then we looked at it again from her perspective and how powerless she felt and how trapped. And he was actually horrified when she brought the concern to the ethics committee and didn't know that there had been anything wrong, and that she felt her whole connection to the Zen practice was kind of collapsing, and she didn't know what else to do. So it was really interesting just to see a situation from those two different perspectives and how the same events can be seen very differently from the student's viewpoint as opposed to the teachers or senior members' viewpoint. So let's see. Any questions about that?
So was that a role-playing exercise, or how did you do that?
We read through the case. There were handouts, and we read through the case first from the teacher's perspective, and then from the student's perspective. And then we were asked to apply the code of ethics to what had happened and say, is there anything here that directly violates something in the code of ethics? And we found that yes, there were specific things that he had done. He had taken her to a restaurant, and it was kind of private, and ordered wine for her when she didn't want wine. And they were driving home back to the temple, and he placed his hand on her thigh and said, "I think you're nice." And so specific things that were kind of crossing boundaries and that could be applied directly to the code of ethics to see that, yes, he actually was in the wrong.
Thanks. So first of all, the teacher so someone would see that there had been an ethical violation and go to one of the teachers and tell the situation, and then it would be according to the guidelines set out by the SZBA. Then the teacher would look into the matter, and they called it open investigation, and would try to gather all the facts from all the people involved before coming to a conclusion or making a decision about what to do. And so the goal is to keep it as confidential as possible and not to involve more people than necessary. But then it may become necessary to draw in outside help depending on the severity of the situation. And I believe, so the White Plum Sangha has, I believe the process is to go through a counseling circle, and there can be an outside leader of the council brought in, the council circle brought in to help mediate that process.
Did you come away feeling like there was this in the real world, this could work pretty well?
Yeah, definitely. And the SZBA has developed a process. So there's the grievance process and mediation, and then there's a reintegration process and what the offender can do to reintegrate with the Sangha. And the goal is always to reintegrate and bring harmony back so that the person doesn't have to leave, but specific things that the mediation team or the ethics team can decide that, okay, this is what this person has to do to reintegrate and make amends. And if they can show that, yes, they've done all these things, then they can be welcomed and reintegrated back into the center. So next we heard from a panel of young people about making Zen relevant for the next generation. So if Zen is going to continue in America, it has to be something that young people are drawn to and want to invest a lot of their time and dedication into and feel committed to. So what is it that draws young people into Zen? What makes them want to stick around and be part of the community? So we heard from 3 young people, Sydney Slavitt, age 24, who's a program coordinator for a center in Brooklyn, New York called Dharma Gates that connects young adults to a range of immersive introductory meditation experiences in different Buddhist traditions. There was Dakota Parmley, age 25, who's a lay disciple at the Dharma Reigns Zen Center in Oregon, and who's a graduate student for counseling psychology. And Thomas Albanese, age 33, who's a youth program alumnus. He grew up at the Dharma Reigns Center in Oregon in their youth program from age 7 to 14, and now he teaches there. So this panel was kind of a discussion between these three young people in response to questions from the mediator and later from the audience. So there seems to be a question among older folks, well, if we want to draw young people in, does that mean that we post a lot on social media and Facebook and Instagram and spend a lot of our practice time making posts on social media to draw young people in? And they were like, no, that's not what we want. Please don't do that. That's not what matters to us. So some things that they talked about were the younger generations want to have a sense of autonomy or equal say. They don't want to be talked down to by someone who might have a lot of experience, but also might be kind of separated from the world. So young people bring that connection to the modern world, I guess. They care a lot about being open and supportive of neurodiversity and queer, non-binary, and trans folks. And they care a lot about being considerate of as many different perspectives as possible. There's a lot of awareness about many different kinds of perspectives and backgrounds and experiences, and they really value being as inclusive of different experiences as possible. They care about connecting to Dharma friends, having real in-person interaction. There's so much online, and it's so impersonal these days, and being able to connect with real people in a sangha setting is important to them. And having people that they look forward to checking in with and seeing when they come to sangha. They care about having their voices heard and respected. It's more about growing this sangha together, and they value having ways to engage and be involved with the sangha at different levels and positions, like having different responsibilities in the sangha at different levels. Let's see. There's this sincere seeking and wanting to connect to tradition, to connect to something that has roots. There's so much rootlessness and cut-offness in the modern world that there's a craving for connecting with something deeper that has meaning. And so it really matters to young people to hear the ancient teachings in a way that is relevant to their modern everyday lives. I think a lot of this can be applied not just to younger generations, but to other people as well. So they really love hearing about, hearing teachings from the ancient sutras, but then what does that mean in my life? And hearing teachings from teachers who really can translate it into terms of our modern lives and our modern concerns. It makes them feel connected to something older. There's this feeling among many young people today of being kind of jaded and ironic and hurt feeling, about what they're inheriting, the problems in the world that they're inheriting. But there's also this tenderheartedness and genuinely wanting to do good, to do something that will help the world. And so there is this seeking and wanting to be part of something bigger than themselves and have a way to give to the world. Making teachings relevant to the environmental and social justice world issues that Generation Z is inheriting. they like having a personal connection. A personal connection is what draws most people in, like a recommendation from a friend or a specific invitation to college classes, or they spoke about non-religious community events like potlucks, pottery classes, poetry, calligraphy, movies, etc., that aren't specifically focused around religion, but are ways to connect with sangha members and kind of be a way in to the sangha. And one interesting thing was that there's a radar on among young people for realness, craving connection to something real and authentic. Seeing that the people of the sangha really live in their lives what they're teaching about. Yeah, there can be an existential dread for a lot of young people, and also a lot of young people don't have a lot of money, so the cost of membership and the cost to attend retreats can be a barrier and can keep a lot of young people from committing. Also, there's so much access in today's world to spiritual teachings and spiritual teachers. You can just plug into spiritual communities online anywhere, and there's just so much access to teachings that among young people there's this hesitancy to commit to one specific teacher or lineage or sangha, and there's a lot of shopping around and doing some practices with one sangha and some practices with another, and looking elsewhere, and having a hard time or seeing the value really of committing to just one center when there's so much availability out there. So those were the main things that I wanted to share about what they talked about. It was led by 3 different women from 3 different generations, and they each told their stories and their experiences with Zen practice. I'll just cover a few highlights. One interesting thing, let's see, Reverend Conchon Galen Godwin of the Houston Zen Center. She grew up in a time when women's voices were never heard, and there was a lot of discrimination in the various religions that she practiced in. But she immediately felt at home in Zen, and she entered the San Francisco Zen Center at a time when the leader had just been found guilty of financial and sexual misconduct, and it was the women who really held the center together. And Kanjin Roshi has had the opportunity to travel to Japan and talk with different leaders there. And one interesting thing, she wasn't the only person who spoke about this, but that Zen leaders in Japan are wondering what we're doing so well in America, that Zen is so vibrant and alive in America and not so much anymore in Japan. And so they were asking Kanjin Roshi, what can we do about that? And she said, well, men and women have to train together. And this Roshi was one of the first women to be the head of the Sojiji monastery in Japan. And she said, there will be problems if men and women train together. And Kanjin Roshi said, yes, there will be problems, but we work through them as a sangha. And so that's what she recommended to Japan. And she ended what she said with that this issue of elevating women's voices is not going away. And she thinks that the next step is undermining the patriarchy as well. That was what she said. And then Reverend Genko Rainwater from the Dharma Rain Zen Center was of the youngest generation, and she came to Zen as a way to heal from patriarchal violence and PTSD. And she felt safe in the Brooklyn Zen Center, that it was a safe place to go because they had an offering on their website about undoing patriarchy. So she felt it was a safe place for her. And she loved Zazen so much because it was the first time that she didn't feel compelled to smile. She could just sit down and have her own experience, and it wasn't about any kind of performance. and she could feel intimate with people in a way that didn't depend on performance or gender. She also spoke about the importance of leaders of having support at different levels of leadership, that there can be this assumption that if you're in a position of leadership, then you're strong and capable and don't need support. But she and her sangha are working on changing that assumption, and that what gives her strength and power is collaborating with the whole sangha, talking with the sangha and then speaking on their behalf, and that makes her feel strong as a leader. So I really thought that was beautiful, and maybe a more feminine way of being a leader. My thought was that the way that men hold power isn't the only way to hold power, and there are other ways to hold power. So let's see. Then there was Kaishin Victory Matsui of the Brooklyn Zen Center. And she spoke about a list from the United Nations that said, okay, here's what's going on with women, and there's this assumption that we've met all our goals and now everything's fine. But really, everything's not fine, and women's voices are still not being heard. Women are still being thrown under the bus, and things can look like they're better, but not actually be better. And she spoke about how these different different support groups have formed in her sangha that are strictly there for support, not to make policies or decisions, but different cohort groups, like a priest group, a teachers group, an officers group, and they're just so people can get together and talk about their experiences and support each other and be heard. One other interesting thing was that Kanjin Roshi conducted a survey of the Houston Zen Center members, and also some SZBA members took part. I didn't take part in it. I didn't know about it. But she highlighted a couple results from the survey, and one was that most people feel that their centers were doing a pretty good job, but that they personally didn't feel invited to speak. So that was kind of interesting. They felt that their centers on the whole were doing a good job of elevating women's voices, but that they personally didn't feel invited to speak. And also another significant thing was that most people who responded to the survey said that they expect their Zen center to lead the way. They expect the leaders to be at the forefront of changes like this. And that really resonated with me, and I realized, yeah, that's true for me too. I'm waiting to be empowered. I'm kind of waiting to be invited to be in more of a leadership position, and waiting for someone else, waiting for the leaders and my teachers to invite me and pave the way for that to happen. Maybe there are things that women can do to empower themselves, and not wait for other people to do it for them. And then I came across this a couple days later on a Facebook group that said, you've heard the phrase empower women, but have you ever heard empower men? It's time to rethink the word empower when it comes to girls and women. Saying we need to empower them implies that they're waiting for someone else to grant them power as if they can't claim it for themselves. So that was something I ran across just a couple days later from the Female Quotient on Facebook. So is that a lot has been done, but there's still more to be done. There was another presentation about sexuality in Zen, and I won't go into that much, but basically it was about how we are sexual beings and sexuality is one of the precepts, but people don't tend to talk about it much in Zen talks and Zen practice, but it is there, and it's as much a part of our practice as any of the other precepts. So that was good just to hear that addressed and talked about. Let's see. Probably just about out of time, but there are resources. The SZBA has some wonderful resources available for Sangha members, not just members of the SZBA. But if you go to szba.org and go to
events. There are various recordings of events and programs that you can tune into live, different teachings and programs by wonderful teachers. There's also SZBA.org, and then go to resources. There's a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility resource guide, the SZBA statement of recognition and repentance, and resources and recorded talks for promoting DEIA in Buddhist communities, links to affinity groups, books, indigenous people's wisdom, women in Buddhism, things about understanding non-binary gender and overcoming transphobia, Buddhist works by LGBTQ plus folks, and lots of things like that. So those are available to anyone on the SZBA website. So I wanted to make sure that you know that there are those resources and opportunities to connect to other programs that are being offered in this wider Zen community. So let's see. I also wanted to say a little bit about psychological health. But I think we're probably out of time. So, and I wanted to leave time for any more questions.
I wanted to respond to what Tetsudo said, because when I was president of the White Plum, we had a number of teachers who violated boundaries, and we had a curriculum for them in order to heal the wounds that they had caused. And some teachers are willing to do that, but most weren't, and so then they became no longer in good standing with the White Plum. But part of it involves acknowledging the harm you've caused and publicly, and in some cases therapy or to show that you've corrected whatever behavior it was that caused a problem, and then some kind of restitution to the person they harmed. It could be in form of having to pay for their therapy, for example, or some other things. I want to say that. And I wanted to mention something in terms of empowerment. I mean, Zen is hierarchical. Hierarchical isn't the same thing as patriarchal. But, people are empowered to teach by their teachers, and there have been problems of people who are self-proclaimed Zen teachers who don't have a lineage that they can anchor themselves to. But I think the empowerment you were talking about, Koren, is more like what Maizumi Roshi said, to appreciate yourself, to feel good about yourself, to feel complete and whole, not necessarily in a position of power. So I think those are different things. To feel empowered might just mean that you feel recognized, but of course that always comes from within, to appreciate yourself. So how to appreciate yourself? Well, that's what the teachings are always about, that we, particularly at our center, I know Roshi Shinko and I try to emphasize to our students, to recognize your true nature and to appreciate your true nature and to bring that forth. And so I think that's a form, if you want to use the word empowerment, but I like the word just feeling complete and whole. Okay.
I like that.
That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Roshi.
I'd love to just hear a minute or two about the psychological aspects that were brought up.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it shouldn't take long. Let's see. There was discussion about how to handle what is being termed as a mental health event or a psychological crisis that someone in the sangha might have. Our main concerns are we want the person to feel safe and we want the sangha to feel safe. If someone is having a crisis. And it always seems in these discussions that the question comes up, well, we want this space to be inclusive of everyone and supportive of everyone. We don't want to have to turn anyone away. And so where do we draw the line if someone is causing a disturbance? And so the guidance that was offered was that, okay, we're doing this practice. This is what we do here, sitting in silence together and sitting still and silently together. And if someone is not able to do that and is causing a disturbance for the other people who are here practicing, then we might gently and kindly escort them out of the room and talk to them about when might be a good time for them to come back, or where we can refer them to that might be a better fit for them. So it's not like we're telling them, get out of here, we can't accept you. We are being supportive of them, but we're also drawing that line of, okay, if you can't do the practice that we're doing here and you're causing a disturbance, then this isn't the time for you to be here. So that was helpful for me to hear. So let's see, we're not in the business of diagnosing anyone. Our job is to keep everyone safe and be loving and compassionate. I really like that. And so we can always be we can be caring and present and really hear what they're saying, but also, like if someone is having a crisis and I feel afraid to approach them, or I don't feel qualified to get involved, then I should stay back and ask someone else for help. I shouldn't assume that just because I'm a part of the sangha or present here when this is happening, that I will necessarily know what to do to help this person. And so I or someone else can ask for help. So let's see, those were a couple things. We don't usually fix things in the middle of what's happening. Instead, just ask, are you all right? Is there anything I can do to help you? And one thing that was recommended is just to take the person for a walk, get them moving, maybe teach them a simple breathing exercise to get them out of their head and into something physical. So those were some recommendations that I thought were really valuable just to be aware of as Sangha members. What can we do if something like that does happen in a Sangha setting? Well, I really appreciate everybody being here and your support and participation. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much to my teachers for the opportunity to talk with you today. Let's go ahead and finish.
Make it, Koren.